All right, let's talk about the new Amazon Prime movie, The Wrecking Crew. You've got Dave Bautista and Jason Momoa teaming up, which sounds like a guaranteed hit, right? Well, when you put two of Hollywood's biggest action stars in a buddy film like this, you get some pretty strong and honestly hilarious opinions. Okay, let's just start with this quote from the review, because wow, they are not pulling any punches here. I mean, there's just no sugarcoating it. That's about as blunt as you can get when talking about a movie script. But, and this is a huge but, here's the twist. In the very same breath that they called it one of the stupidest movies they'd ever seen, they also admitted they had an absolute blast watching it. They called it the perfect turn-your-brain-off action flick. So, how does that work? How could a movie be both of those things at the exact same time? So, what exactly are we dealing with here? Well, the reviewers made it really clear that this movie was never ever trying to be some Oscar contender. Nope, it knows exactly what it is, and it belongs to a very specific genre, one that's all about spectacular, nonsensical entertainment. Yeah, the phrase that kept popping up over and over was dumb fun. You know the type. It's a movie you enjoy because it doesn't take itself seriously. It's fully aware that the plot is ridiculous, it knows the action completely ignores the laws of physics, and it just leans into that chaos 100%. And I love this slide because it shows there's a scale for this kind of stuff, right? For the reviewers, The Wrecking Crew hits that perfect sweet spot. It's gloriously, wonderfully dumb, but it hasn't crossed that line into, sending a car into orbit levels of stupid that can just break a franchise. And a big reason it's so dumb fun is the plot. They literally called it a generic ass plot. And yeah, you can see why. It's a total paint-by-numbers setup. You've got the estranged brothers, the murdered dad, the conspiracy. But that's the thing, the story isn't the point. It's just the flimsy excuse to get us from one insane action scene to the next. So, this is crucial. If the plot is just a placeholder, what is it that actually makes the movie work? What makes it fun? Well, according to everyone who reviewed it, it all comes down to the absolutely killer chemistry between the two leads. And this lays it out perfectly. It is the classic odd couple formula, and man, does it work here. You have Jason Momoa as this chaotic, wild-card, life-of-the-party guy playing off of Dave Bautista's quiet, stoic, super disciplined ex-Navy SEAL character. It's just gold. And that chemistry was so good that even with the completely ridiculous story happening around them, the reviewers found themselves totally invested in these two guys. They said their brotherly bond was the surprisingly satisfying heart of the whole movie. Okay, so the plot is weak, but the chemistry is strong. Now let's get to the action, because this is where the movie just completely commits to its dumb fun identity. We're talking totally over-the-top, physics is just a suggestion, and honestly, hilarious action scenes. I mean, just look at this list of some of the most absurd moments. You've got bad guys with aim so terrible they make stormtroopers look like elite snipers. You've got hostages just left alone in the middle of a massive gunfight. And my favorite part? The fact that our heroes probably cause more accidental damage and casualties than the actual villains do. This highway chase scene is the perfect summary of the movie's vibe. You have a helicopter just unloading on the highway, blowing up every car in sight except the one it's actually aiming for. Then, after Bautista's character takes it down with one perfect shot, the helicopter, now with no pilot, proceeds to bounce down the highway like a pinball chasing their minivan. It's a sequence so unbelievably silly, it had the reviewers laughing out loud. But here's where it gets interesting. For all of that cartoonish, CGI-heavy action, the reviewers pointed out that when the fighting gets up close and personal, it becomes shockingly brutal, like really gory. These are not fun, stylized brawls. They are genuinely wince-inducing fights. Yeah, there's a fight scene early on with Jason Momoa's character that lets you know exactly what you're in for. It involves a kitchen counter, a cheese grater, and some really bone-crunching moves that make it clear that, despite all the silliness, this movie is not pulling its punches. So, after all the explosions, the one-liners, the bad CGI, and the really brutal fights, we get to the big question: is The Wrecking Crew actually worth your time? And the reviewers really struggled with this one, because the answer isn't a simple yes or no. It really all depends on what your definition of a good movie even is. And this is the bottom line, right here. Your enjoyment of this movie depends completely on your expectations going in. If you fire up Amazon Prime expecting a clever, well-written story, you are going to be very disappointed. But if you're just looking for mindless, explosive popcorn fun, it absolutely delivers. Their final scores really reflect this whole idea. Look at them, they're all in that solid, above-average range. But they're not scoring it as a traditionally good movie. They're scoring it as a great example of a good, dumb action movie. There's a difference. So ultimately, the recommendation is super specific. If you already have Amazon Prime, you don't really feel like dropping money at the theater, and your ideal Friday night involves kicking back on the couch and just watching stuff blow up for 2 hours, then yeah, The Wrecking Crew is for you. And that kind of leaves us with one last question to chew on. As more and more of these massive star-powered action movies skip theaters and go straight to streaming, are these dumb fun films, the ones made for your couch, not a giant IMAX screen, becoming the new definition of what a blockbuster experience is?